Borthakur IAS Academy, an endeavor of excellence.
Borthakur IAS Academy.
Hello everyone, welcome to Borthakur IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. I'm your friend Atri and today I'm here with another segment of Current Affairs 365 dated 6th of August 2021. This is your one-stop solution for any news and updates which will help you prepare for your civil services examination, and along with that it is also going to be beneficial for any other Assam state government services. So don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram. So the first news for today is regarding a report on water resource management. Recently, a report has been tabled in Rajya Sabha by the Standing Committee on Water Resources, which has been titled as Flood Management in the country, including international water treaties in the field of water resource management, with particular reference to the agreements entered into with Pakistan, China and Bhutan. Government of India also emphasized that they should renegotiate the Treaty of Indus Water of the year 1960 with Pakistan in the light of present day challenges like climate change and other issues related to Chinese actions over the river Brahmaputra. So now let us have a look at the key points of this report. First point which was highlighted here was on flood management. The committee recommended setting up of a permanent institutional structure in the form of National Integrated Flood Management Group, which will be under the chairmanship of the Ministry of Jal Shakti immediately in order to control and manage the floods of our country. This group should also take into account the coordination and building synergies between all the agencies which are directly responsible for management of floods and their consequences on life and property. Second point was regarding the Indus Water Treaty. This report highlighted certain impacts of climate change and how the water of Indus can be utilized. Okay, so when it highlighted the climate change, impacts of climate change, 3 points were focused mainly. This was the rainfall pattern. There are certain instances of more high intensity rainfall as well as long stretches of period with lesser rainfalls. Okay, then come glacial melt. The contribution of glaciers in the Indus basin is quite higher as compared to Ganga or Brahmaputra, and similarly disasters are also quite frequent there because of the involvement or because of the presence of fragile Himalayan region. Okay, so that area is more prone or vulnerable towards disasters like landslides and flash floods. Next was regarding utilization of the water of Indus. India was able to make full use of the eastern rivers like Ravi, Bias and Satluj through a series of dams. For example, Bhakra Nangal on Satluj, then there is Ranjit Sagar Dam over the river Ravi in Pathankot, and also the Pong Dam on Bias. Okay, but the canals in Punjab and Rajasthan, like that of the Rajasthan feeder and the Sher Hind feeder, they are like old now and are not maintained properly. It has resulted in lowering their carrying capacity. So the water from Harike barrage on the confluence of Bias and Satluj in Punjab, it usually is released downstream into Pakistan. Because of that, India is not being able to fully make proper utilization of that particular water. So the government has urged this report has urged the center to expedite new projects like that on the Ujh river, which is a tributary of Ravi, as well as Shahpur Kandi on the river Ravi itself, to exploit full potential of these rivers for irrigation as well as other purposes. It has also recommended that the canal systems in Punjab and Rajasthan, they should be repaired, and it should increase the water carrying capacity of these canals. Third point regarding this Indus Valley Treaty itself was regarding renegotiation. See, the present day issues like climate change, global warming and other environmental issues, okay, which are reflected in the environmental impact assessment, they were not taken into account when this treaty was signed in the year 1960. So now there is a need to renegotiate the treaty so as to establish some kind of institutional structure which will address the impact of climate change on current status of water availability in the basin, and also along with that it will focus on other challenges which were not covered earlier at the time of signing this particular treaty. The next point was regarding China's development or China's involvement over the river Brahmaputra. The report standing committee, it has expressed apprehensions that though the run of the river projects which was undertaken by China may not lead to diversions of water, but there is every possibility that water can be stored in the ponds and they might be released for running the turbines. Okay, this may in turn lead to certain variations in the downstream flow which might have some negative impact on our country. Okay, and it might affect India's endeavors to tap the region's water resources for its own benefit. India should also constantly monitor the Chinese actions so that they can ensure that China do not pursue any major interventions on the river Brahmaputra which would adversely affect our national interest. The committee also expressed satisfaction that China is sharing its hydrological data with regard to the rivers Brahmaputra and Satluj, though on payment basis. Currently, there is no water treaty between India and China. Next was cooperation with Bhutan. There was a scheme titled Comprehensive Scheme for Establishment of Hydrometeorological and Flood Forecasting Network on rivers common to India and Bhutan, which is in operation. And these common, some of the example of common rivers includes the river Manas and Sankosh. This network, it consists of 32 hydrometeorological stations which are located in Bhutan, and it is being maintained by the Royal Government of Bhutan with funding from India, and the data which is received from these stations are utilized by India for formulating flood forecasts. Also, a JGE group, that means Joint Group of Expert JGE on flood management, has been constituted between both the nations in order to discuss and assess the probable causes and effects of recurring floods and erosions in both the countries. Today's second news is related to major administrative reforms. Recently, Union government gave information on major administrative reforms which were introduced in the recent years and emphasized the importance of these reforms in making governance more accessible. Mission Karam Yogi is one of such points which was highlighted in these reforms. This is a national program for civil services capacity building, and it is a comprehensive reform of the capacity building apparatus at individual, institutional and process levels for efficient public service delivery. Mission Karam Yogi is mainly aimed at building a future ready civil service with the right altitude, skills and knowledge which is aligned to the vision of New India. So this capacity building will be delivered through I Got Karam Yogi digital platform, which will have content drawn from the global best practices. Next point was regarding lateral entry, which means that when personnel from the private sector are selected to an administrative post of the government without them being selected in or being a part of the bureaucratic setup. Lateral entry, it is significant because contemporary times they require highly skilled and motivated individuals at the helm of administrative services, without which the public service delivery mechanism, it do not work smoothly. Then comes e-Samiksha, which is a real-time online system for monitoring and follow-up actions on the decisions taken by government. It is a digital monitor for bureaucracy to rein in slackers. Third point is e-Office. E-Office Mission Mode project. It has been strengthened for enabling the departments to switch over to paperless office and efficient decision making. Next point is citizen charters. The government has mandated the citizen charters for all departments, which are updated and reviewed on a regular basis. Moving ahead to the next point, which was Good Governance Index of 2019. It assesses the status of governance and impacts of the various interventions that were taken up by the state government as well as union territory. And main objective of this index is to provide quantifiable data to compare the state of governance in all the states and union territories, and it will also enable the states and union territories to formulate and implement suitable strategies. Next, we have the National Conference on E-Governance. It provides a platform for the government to engage with experts, intellectuals from industry and academic institutions to exchange experiences relating to e-governance initiatives. And we also have the National E-Governance Service Delivery Assessment, which aims at assessing the states, union territories and central ministries on the efficiency of e-governance service delivery. Reforms are an obvious response to the new challenges confronting the state institution managing public affairs, but what lies at the root of this is the effort to enhance administrative capabilities in the changed scenario. And each civil servant should provide unbiased, rational and meritorious suggestions to the political executive in policy formulation. It requires an impartial civil services board that can look after all the aspects related to promotions, transfers, posting and suspensions of these individuals. Moving ahead to the next news, it is regarding 127 Constitutional Amendment Bill of 2021. Government is planning to bring a bill to the Parliament to clarify some provisions in the 102nd Constitutional Amendment Bill in order to restore the power of states to identify backward classes. And the amendment was necessitated after Supreme Court upheld the 102nd Constitutional Amendment, but said that President, based on recommendations of the National Commission for Backward Classes, they would determine which communities can be included on the state OBC list. As per the 102nd Constitutional Amendment, two articles, Article 338B and 342A with two clauses were inserted after the Article 342. 338B, it deals with the structure, duties and powers of the National Commission for Backward Classes, and 342A, it says that the President, in consultation with the Governor, would specify socially and educationally backward classes. In this particular amendment, it will amend the clause number 1 and 2 of Article 342A, and along with that a third clause will also be introduced. The bill will also amend Articles 366(26)(c) and 338(b)(9). So the state list now will be completely taken out of the ambit of President and will be notified by the state assemblies. Coming to other developments on the OBCs, some Member of Parliaments, they have raised the issue of defining creamy layer in the ongoing monsoon session of Parliament. The Union Health Ministry has announced 27% reservation for the OBCs and 10% reservation for economically weaker sections in the All India Quota scheme for the undergraduate and postgraduate medical dental courses from 2021-22 onwards. As per the procedures which are laid down in Constitution, a Constitution Amendment Bill can be of three types. First is requiring a simple majority for its passage in each house. Second is requiring special majority for their passage in each house, that is a majority of total membership of a house and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of that house present and voting. And the third point is requiring special majority for their passage and ratification by the legislatures of not less than 1/2 of the states. So a Constitution Amendment Bill under the Article 368, it can be introduced in either House of Parliament and has to be passed by each house with special majority. And also there is no provision of joint sittings on a money bill or a Constitution Amending Bill. The amendment is found necessary to restore powers of the state governments to maintain the state list of OBCs, which was taken away by Supreme Court's interpretation. And besides that, India has a federal structure, and in order to maintain that particular structure, this amendment was quite essential. The next news is about Samagra Shiksha Scheme 2.0. The Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs has approved the school education program Samagra Shiksha Scheme 2.0 till the year 2025-26. It has been upgraded to align it with the Sustainable Development Goal for Education and the new education policy which was launched last year. Samagra Shiksha Scheme, it is an integrated scheme for school education covering preschool to class 12, which aims to deliver inclusive, equitable and affordable school education for all. It also subsumes the three schemes of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan and the teachers education. And this scheme will cover 1.16 million schools, over 156 million students and 5.7 million teachers of government and aided schools. This scheme is being implemented as a centrally sponsored scheme which involves a 60:40 split in funding between the centre and most states, and this scheme was initially launched by the Ministry of Education in the year 2018. In order to enhance direct outreach of the scheme, all children-centric interventions will be provided directly to the students through DBT mode on an IT-based platform over a period of time. And this DBT would include right to education entitlements such as textbooks, uniforms and transport allowance. Next, it has a new component for appointment of language teachers, which includes salaries and training costs as well as bilingual books and teaching learning materials. This scheme will also include funding to support the pre-primary sections at the government schools for teaching and learning materials, indigenous toys and games and play-based activities. Under this initiative, Nipun Bharat scheme is also there, which is an annual provision of Rs 500 for child for learning materials and Rs 150 per teacher for manuals and resources, and Rs 10 to 20 lakh per district will be given for assessment for foundational literacy and numeracy. Then other features here includes financial support for State Commission for protection of child rights at Rs 50 per elementary school in the state for protection of child rights and safety. Then we have additional sports grant of up to Rs 25,000 to the schools in case at least 2 students of that school wins a medal in Khelo India school games at the national level. Provisions for bagless days, school complexes, internships with local artisans, curriculum and pedagogical reforms are also included. There is also support for social audit, which covers 20% of schools per year so that all schools are covered in a period of 5 years. So this was all for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all will like it. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another segment of Current Affairs 365 only on Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS একাডেমি প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS Academy